So here's the crazy part. YouTube uploads over 500 hours of video every minute. Think about that for a second. 500 hours. How on earth do they even begin to moderate that?
That's insane. It's not just the volume, it's the velocity. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose of content, and some of it's definitely toxic. So we're talking about harmful content detection at that kind of scale, right? YouTube and Facebook, the big players.
Exactly. And it's not just cat videos and dance challenges, is it? We're talking about hate speech, misinformation, violent extremism, the stuff that can genuinely cause real-world harm.
And the cost of not moderating it is huge. We've seen elections swayed by misinformation, hate crimes fueled by online rhetoric, and the general erosion of trust in, well, everything. Remember the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal? That's a prime example of what happens when content moderation fails.
Oh, absolutely. Or think about the Myanmar genocide, where Facebook was heavily criticized for its role in amplifying hate speech against the Rohingya people. The stakes are incredibly high. So how do they do it? How do these platforms even begin to tackle this monstrous problem?
Well, it's a multi-layered approach, right? It's not just one magic algorithm. It's a combination of machine learning, natural language processing, and crucially, human review. Let's start with the machine learning aspect.
Okay, so machine learning. Everyone throws that term around. But what does it actually mean in the context of harmful content detection? Are we talking about just flagging keywords?
No, it's far more sophisticated than simple keyword matching. Think of it as training a model to recognize patterns. These models are fed massive datasets of content that has already been labeled as harmful or not harmful. They learn to identify features that are indicative of harmful content.
So, like if a post uses certain phrases or has a specific tone, the model can flag it.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just text. For video, they use computer vision to identify things like hate symbols, graphic violence, or even suspicious activity in the background. For audio, they can detect hate speech, threats, or incitement to violence. Think about YouTube's ability to demonetize channels that violate their policies. That's often driven by these ML models.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're essentially teaching the computer to see and hear harmful content. But wait, doesn't that mean the model is only as good as the data it's trained on? If the training data is biased, won't the model be biased too?
Nutting. That's a huge problem. Algorithmic bias is a massive challenge in content moderation. If the training data predominantly features one type of hate speech, for example, the model might be less effective at detecting other types, or worse, it might unfairly target certain groups or viewpoints.
Right, I see what you mean. So how do they address that? Do they just try to get more diverse data?
That's part of it, but it's not a silver bullet. They also use techniques like adversarial training, where they intentionally try to trick the model with subtle variations of harmful content to make it more robust. They also have teams dedicated to auditing and mitigating bias in their models. Think about how Google has been working to address bias in its image recognition algorithms. It's an ongoing battle.
Okay, so machine learning handles the initial filtering, but it's not perfect. What about the natural language processing aspect? How does that fit in?
Natural language processing, or NLP, is crucial for understanding the context and nuance of language. It goes beyond just identifying keywords. It's about understanding the meaning behind the words.
So it can tell the difference between someone jokingly saying, "I hate you" to a friend and someone genuinely threatening violence.
Precisely. NLP techniques like sentiment analysis, named entity recognition, and topic modeling help the system understand the intent and sentiment behind the text. They can also identify coded language or dog whistles that might be used to spread hate speech without explicitly violating the platform's policies.
Dog whistles. Interesting. So subtle cues that only a specific audience would pick up on. That sounds incredibly hard to detect algorithmically.
It is. That's where the human element comes in. Machine learning and NLP can flag potentially harmful content, but ultimately a human reviewer needs to make the final decision.
Ah, so it's a hybrid approach. The machines do the heavy lifting, but humans provide the judgment. But still, with billions of posts, how do they even prioritize what gets reviewed by a human?
That's where the machine learning models come in again. They assign a severity score to each piece of content based on the likelihood that it violates the platform's policies. The content with the highest severity scores is then prioritized for human review.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like a triage system. The most urgent cases get seen first. But what about the human reviewers themselves? Who are these people, and how are they trained to make these incredibly difficult decisions?
Sigh, that's a whole other can of worms. Content moderation is an incredibly stressful and emotionally taxing job. Reviewers are constantly exposed to graphic violence, hate speech, and other disturbing content. It can take a real toll on their mental health.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's like being a first responder on the internet. They're seeing the worst of humanity every single day.
Exactly. And they're often paid relatively low wages and given little support. There have been numerous reports of content moderators suffering from PTSD and other mental health issues. It's a serious ethical concern.
So the human element, while crucial, is also a huge challenge. It's not just about the technology, it's about the people behind the technology. But here's where it gets interesting. Even with all these layers of machine learning, NLP, and human review, harmful content still slips through the cracks. Why?
Because the bad actors are constantly evolving their tactics. They're always finding new ways to circumvent the system. As the platforms develop a new defense, the attackers find a new way to break through. Think about how spammers constantly evolve their email tactics to bypass spam filters. It's the same principle.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole. You knock one down and another one pops up. So what can engineers actually do differently after listening to this? It's all a bit overwhelming.
Right, so 3 key takeaways. First, think about bias from day one. Don't just assume your training data is representative. Actively seek out diverse data sets and use techniques like adversarial training to mitigate bias. It's like baking a cake. You can't add the sugar after it's baked.
Love that analogy. Okay, bias from day one. Got it. What's the second takeaway?
Second, design for human oversight. Don't treat machine learning as a black box. Build systems that allow human reviewers to easily understand why a particular piece of content was flagged and provide feedback to improve the model. Think of it as building a self-driving car. You still need a steering wheel and a driver who can take over when things go wrong.
Okay, so transparency and human control. Makes sense. And the third takeaway?
Third, prioritize the well-being of your content moderators. Invest in their training, provide them with adequate mental health support, and pay them fairly. Remember, they're on the front lines of this battle. It's like taking care of your soldiers. You can't expect them to fight effectively if they're not properly equipped and supported.
That's a powerful point. It's easy to get caught up in the technical challenges, but we can't forget about the human cost. So, to recap, bias from day one, design for human oversight, and prioritize the well-being of your content moderators.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing battle. There's no easy solution. It requires constant vigilance, innovation, and a commitment to ethical design.
Well said, Shrija. It's a monumental engineering challenge, but it's a moral imperative. The future of our online world depends on it.
Indeed, and if we don't get it right, the internet risks becoming a place where only the loudest and most hateful voices are heard.
So, the next time you're scrolling through your feed, remember the complex systems and the dedicated people working behind the scenes to keep it safe. It's a constant arms race, but it's a fight worth fighting.
Precisely. And as engineers, we have a responsibility to build systems that are not only technically sophisticated, but also ethically sound.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. Until next time, keep coding ethically.